Now we're
Anyway,
live.
now we are live.
Okay, so I'm Kay. Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Chris behind the guy behind now that I'm still here.
And my dog's gonna make a cameo. There's Bria.
Hey, I'll have to move so that Shadow can make a cameo. She usually hangs out by the couch or on the couch.
So today we just decided to kind of start our own little podcast together and go live and talk about today wanted to talk about men's mental health. Chris, I know you've struggled for a long time with your mental health. You've written a book about it. Um, Personally, there's not enough
There's
of
Shadow, by the way. Sorry.
oh, hi Shadow. Personally, I think that there's not enough it's not discussed enough men's mental health and kind of the focus around that. And yeah. So Chris, tell me
Yeah,
about your life. Tell me what, you know, I know that you kind of opened up to me and you said you struggled quite a bit um with depression, anxiety, and I believe yeah, just share from there. Like how,
yeah. I mean, I navigated most of my life with undiagnosed autism, right? And with that came a huge piece of anxiety and depression because for the longest time I had no idea what was going on, right? I didn't have the language for it. Um, and then I started to mask a lot. So masking is a common term in the autism world where you suppress uh, a person on the spectrum suppresses themselves to so that publicly and socially they become more digestible or um, more uh, normal, even though normal doesn't really
yeah,
exist, right?
normal, yeah.
Um, and so that was not only exhausting, it was I spent most of my life thinking, well, what the hell's wrong with me?
Mhm.
Like why am I feeling uh like I want to crawl out of my skin when I hear like someone chew funny or um so I then I thought I was just maybe being too sensitive. And then it wasn't it that was compounded by the fact that when I was 35, I got diagnosed with autism after my then wife consistently pushed for me to get diagnosed. And so one of two things happened there. First thing was, well, finally, everything that I had gone through up until that point finally had a name, and I like it's like oh, like and a lot of stuff really made sense. Like, oh, this is why I find like the lighting so nerve wracking, or um, like everything just about my anxiety around social cues, or why I can't look people in the eye or everything finally like, and so I knew what to address then, right?
Yeah. So that diagnosis sort of helped you know, like, different areas like, "Oh, I don't like bright lights, so this is an alternative for me," or, "I don't like the way people chew, so I just, you know, I can handle it this way." So that diagnosis, was it life-changing for you?
In more ways than one. Like, yeah, like it gave me a great platform to better understand myself and the way my how my brain was wired. Uh, and so that I can finally learn to meet the world halfway, but also self advocate for myself, so that like rather than saying, "Oh, I can't go to the bar with my friends and do karaoke because I have autism," right? It's more along the lines of saying, "Hey guys, I'm going to come with you, but because of my autism, I may need to go outside for a couple of minutes. It's just me grounding myself. I need a break from all my sensory stuff." And So in that way, it's kinda like a give and take. So in that sense, it was kinda life changing, right? So, and then the other way it was life changing was as soon as, that diagnosis came, that piece of paper was a way for my mother-in-law and my then wife to weaponize my diagnosis, right?
That's a shame.
Uh, yeah, and so it turned to almost I wish it was hubris when I say, um, it became a daily conversation of how exhausting my autism was, how, um or is, how I shouldn't be allowed to be married to my wife because of my autism. I'm an embarrassment to her and the family. And then my wife started joining in, and over time for 3 years, it started to erode my sense of self, right?
So you really
Some
didn't have a support system there for you when you got this diagnosis, and they kind of used almost I mean, it's something like it was an insecurity for you, so using that against you is just abuse on top of that diagnosis.
Exactly, and it turned that abuse turned full throttle even further to saying, "Well, you're autistic and the world needs less people on the spectrum, so you should really consider killing yourself," right?
Oh, wow.
Like, and when you hear that for almost 3 years, it really takes over your wiring, right? And so much so that, and I didn't have anyone to turn to because, like, at the premise of all of this, like, who who am I gonna tell that me as a man am getting abused, or that I even am struggling with depression because of what I'm being told, right? Um, and
Plus, there's
I
not enough around, like, men being abused. You know, notoriously, men don't speak out about abuse because, society's like there's this stigma around it that, you don't wanna appear weak as a man or, so I could see where you bottled that up and internalized it because society wouldn't allow you to speak out about it.
yeah, I mean, abuse either way is awful, right?
Oh.
Um, but I think, yes, women tend to speak out more about it, but at the same time, like, it comes at the expense of shame too, right? It's not easy for a woman to come out and say something like this, right? But it's more accepted for a woman, right? And is so, that's why I didn't say anything because, like, I'm a man, like, who am I gonna if they're gonna what are they gonna think, right? Um, s s so much so that, um, I'm a two-time survivor, attempt survivor, um,
And I'm
and,
so glad that you're still here with us and able to share your story and you're using your platform for good, um, to bring awareness to this sort of situation, like, y yeah.
yeah, and I don't know what prompted me. It was, like, early in 2023 where I was talking to my sister, she's the one I told first, right? I was like, "Hey," it was after the second attempt, well after the second attempt, and I felt like I was falling back into that space for a third time, and I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, what's gonna happen to Shadow?" Like, my tether was that thin, right? If Shadow was not around, who knows, right? But I told her, I was like, "I don't wanna upset you, but this is what I've tried to do. This is why." And, like, I mean, obviously, she was upset. She was like, um And, I initially told her, like, we're actually trying, and, we're gonna go through therapy, but then that was the truth. We had started to go through, marriage counseling to, address those issues, and, um, it it stopped uh, when the therapist was like, "Hey, what you're doing, miss, it's kinda messed up," right? And well, uh, therapy ended immediately, and
Oh,
it intensified, right? The "Why did you make me go to marriage counseling? You worthless, pathetic sack of and, like, you should really, like." So I was falling down fast, um, and it wasn't until around September, right? So it went from April to September where I picked up the phone again, and my sister from that time was trying to convince me to, like, "Why don't you come back to Massachusetts? Like, you could stay at my house for as long as you need." And, I kept saying, like, I didn't wanna leave I had just bought that house in 2020, like, I didn't wanna let that go. What 35-year-old could say, or what person can say, "I bought a house at 35," right?
mhm,
So, like, there was that a lot of deep sense of pride that kept me there.
mhm.
But in September, I picked up the phone and I was like, "Hey, I can't anymore. Like, I am fading." And my sister said, "Pack a bag. Um, Pack your dog. I'll be there in the morning." And that's exactly what she did. She drove from Massachusetts
Wow,
to Maryland, uh, to get me,
wow,
and packed up my dog, and off I went. And I it's a s normally, it's a 7-hour car drive. She made it in 6, I think mainly because I wouldn't stop talking about everything that I
mhm.
went through, um, and but,
That's
like,
so important, though, to talk about what you've been through, and I'm glad that you had your sister there as support because it sounds like did you have anybody else there to support you besides your sister, or was it mostly just your sister?
I mean, I had my parents too, um, but they were, at the time, they were in Botswana.
Oh, wow.
No, wait, Ecuador. They were in Ecuador. They had just moved to Ecuador. My mom had started this new job, with, international nonprofit, called CARE. She had moved from Botswana, and so, like, my parents were some people I could call and talk to, but I think what I needed more was presence, like, like, be able to see you and talk to you,
Mhm,
and so that's why I think I leaned on my sister a lot more, and thankfully she was there. Like, I mean, I had no choice. She brought me to her house, and I had nowhere to go, really, um, and I didn't know what to tell my friends. Like, they had no idea. Not even my neighbors across the street, they had no idea. All they would see was me walk in shadow and that friendly, "Hey, how you doing?" And I would
mhm.
chat, um, but, like, I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know where to go, and, um, I got roped into giving her a second chance. Like, uh we had started the process for divorce while I moved up here, and, you know, she kept delaying stuff, like, "Well, this no, and this and that, and, please give me another chance, well, we can make it through. I didn't mean to hurt you, this, that, and the other," and, um, I a lot of me wanted to believe her because by then we were married almost 10 years, and, like, I didn't know I didn't know a life outside of that either, and that
Mhm.
that terrified me, but I knew I couldn't. What also was terrifying was life with her nearly ended me twice, right?
Yeah.
Um, but so I told her, like, Well, one last chance, but this is what it means. Like, you move to Massachusetts, you get a job. We have you have 6 months. We have I want us to go to therapy again, but it has to be in Massachusetts because my support system's here.
Mhm.
And I can't go back to that house, right? Because that's where the attempts happen. There's too much stuff there. And like I want to move forward. And um she I put it this way, like, you know, you have this option. And by the way, like my family isn't gonna want to see you if you choose this, right? They like you can say bye to a family Christmas, a family New Year, family holidays,
Well, and
I'm gonna go.
understandably so.
Yeah, they wanted nothing to do with her, and yeah, and or you can go yourself. Like we sell the house and we split it 50-50 and whatnot, and be on it. Your choice. No, I want my second chance. Alrighty. Well, so we did that. We sold the house. Um we ended up getting a little apartment in Plymouth, America's hometown, by the way. And um and so yeah, I mean, things were fine from December to one day in February, right? Um I mean, I thought things were fine. It wasn't until one night, like the phone was buzzing and she was in the other bedroom and like it was I don't hear very well. So if something's waking me up, it's like so I did one of these like, hey, can you put your phone on don't like I was gonna say that. But she wasn't there, so I rolled over and as I was grabbing the phone to do don't disturb, um, a message popped up from my mom saying, like, I can't wait to see you in Maryland. Have we're gonna look at all these condos and stuff and gonna buy you a condo. And I was like, what the fuck? Uh, uh, this is my lab. We can swear. I was like, what the fuck is this? Right. And then, like, so I called her and I like, what is like, I didn't mean to go through your phone, but what is this message? Right. Like, and that blew up everything. Like, you made me come here, you fucking asshole. I fucking hate Massachusetts. I miss Maryland. I miss my kids. So this is what I'm gonna do. And maybe we can work it out from separate from me living in Maryland and you here. And maybe we'll work it out. Like, well, no. Like, no, you asked for this, right? I'm not like if we're gonna work, you committed to this. You have another 4 months, right? But if you wanna leave, leave, right? I'm not gonna hold you hostage, um, but, like, don't don't make this about me, right?
Mhm.
I didn't choose this, you did. Well, she didn't like that and said, like, "Here's a knife, like, why don't you fucking end what you failed to do twice? Or why don't you finish it?" And that, like, broke me, right?
Yeah.
And that was on Valentine's Day,
Ugh.
uh, right? Where I had something else in mind, like to go out to a nice little dinner.
Mhm.
Not have her give me the night. Like she literally held the hand, like pressed her hand with my and try to get me to to do stuff. And like I let the knife go. And I was like, she ended up going to bed. I slept on the couch with my girl, but I ended up checking myself into a psych ward, right?
Mhm.
Because at this point I needed elevated or a higher level of care, right? Because
What
like that
made you
needed
realize that? Like, what brought you to finally reach out to professionals and say, "I need that help"?
I think my initial reaction was like, did she like, but okay, little context. By the time I checked myself in, uh, and that night, like, some time had passed. I think it was like a week or two. uh, she was already gone. My sister told her, like, "You got 3 days to pack your shit. I don't care where we don't care where you go, but, like, pack your shit and leave." And, um, at that time, I had the apartment to myself, and again, it came back to who's gonna take care of Shadow, right? That was the only reason why I was staying, and it gave me a lot of time to reflect, and it it wasn't that, like, do I wanna stay? Do I wanna go? I mean, my my sister was there, she could take care of Shadow, but she's not gonna do it the way I did it, um, and it wasn't till she told me she was filing for divorce because I was the problem, because of my autism. I think that's what really broke me, like,
She doesn't sound
what
like a very good person at all.
I I am I will leave my opinions.
Yeah,
I
of
left it
course,
to
yeah.
just present the facts, right? People can form
Yep.
the but I have some very strong opinions.
Yes. I think that
Uh,
it's the most important part is that you're no longer in that environment.
yeah, and so to answer that question, like, it nearly broke me, but, like, now it was much more than just Shadow. Like, my mom was there, my sister was there, and they were like, um, "What now?" Right? And I had no idea, but, I had so one day I was like I looked at my mom and I said, "Hey, police are gonna come and to do a wellness check on me." Um, I called them, uh, and so I'm gonna need you to watch Shadow for the next few days. I'm not sure how long I'm gonna be, but and a few minutes later, they came
Mhm.
and they took me. And what isn't what is even more difficult to talk about than the abuse, than the depression, than the attempts is admitting publicly, "Hey, I was in the psych ward." You know, it makes you sound like a nut job, right? Like, this guy, what's but I think in this case, context is everything, right? Like,
But
this is what put
I don't necessarily think I think that if we can change the stigma on that, and look at it more as like you were brave enough to seek help. And that's the most important part is that you knew you couldn't handle it on your own anymore, your family couldn't handle it on their own anymore, and so you went to professionals to kinda get yourself right, and I think that's very brave to do, and I think it's even braver that you're here on a live saying, like, "Yes, I was in that position," and I'm glad that you're speaking out about this, and that's the whole point of doing this live was to bring attention to it because most men wanna try and hide that and not speak out on it, and losing a male friend close to me, near and dear to suicide, and not even knowing that they were in that position when it happened, that I think that's, like, really difficult, so just speaking out about it and using your platform for this good, I think is so important, and look at yourself as really brave for, doing that, for seeking that professional help that you needed.
I'm not very good with compliments. But, um
I'll just keep throwing them at you.
but, I will say I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I got that level of care because I got kicked in the chest, like, metaphorically speaking, kicked in the chest, on a couple things that put things into perspective. The first was I had met an older woman in there, who lost her son, right?
Mhm.
Um and she loved him. She lost her son 3 days prior, uh,
Mhm.
from when we met, and she loves and loved her son so much that she could not imagine a life without him. And so it was so easy to see my mom as she was talking, right?
Mhm.
And so it was a really good perspective. I think the second thing that was really good was there were people, all kinds of characters in there. Um, I had met a Colombian girl who was younger than me, similar story to me, and I remember observing other people in there, and we you had people that were struggling with depression, but you also had people that were off their rocker, like I mean, and that's not fair to say. Uh, they were struggling with like schizophrenia and not being on their meds, or um, other kinds of severe bipolar and not taking their meds. And seeing seeing that made me realize, like, those poor people, they can't change their outcome, right? Um,
Mhm.
like, that person's going to be schizophrenic for the rest of their lives, and that person's going to struggle with bipolar for the rest of their lives. I have a choice here. Like, my problem isn't permanent, right? It sucks now, um, but, like, it isn't permanent. I can fix this, and that was, like, really, I think that was a good foundation for me to see, to kind of, like, propel myself into this, right?
Mhm.
And I walked out of that with tools, um, with cognitive behavioral therapy tools, and how to reframe, and realizing that the road to recovery is the small wins, right? Getting out of bed, s- making your bed, going outside, and which led to other things. Like, I found love again. Sadly, I lost it, but um, like, she passed away almost, what is it, 10 months ago now? It'll be 10 months in February, and like, that was really good. To kind of, like, experience the complete polar opposite, and
Mhm.
that's what kind of, like, started my journey of talking about it and speaking out of this drug on men's mental health, and yeah.
Well, I think also you found a reason to stay, and if anything, those coping skills that you learned gave you, like, the direction that you needed to find your purpose so that you stayed. I did wanna ask, what's your advice for men who might be struggling now, who may be too afraid to speak out? What's something that in that moment when you were struggling helped you speak out?
You want the filtered or unfiltered version?
Um, I think for the audience sake, let's do a filtered version.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a more watered down version of, there. First of all, there is no shame in making that admission of, like, hey, my mental health is not good, um, and just being brave enough to open up about it. It there's I hate speaking in cliches, but there's this cliche that says it's okay to not be okay,
Mhm,
right? And find someone you can confide. Like, if talking to an actual human being and reaching out to an actual human being is face to face is shameful, you can do it anonymously. You can use 988, or or a anonymous hotline that you can call, and or text, just so you can let it out.
mhm.
Let it out, and then see what happens.
Mhm.
You see how much lighter you feel, and hopefully that inspires you to take that next step of, "Where do I wanna go from here?" And and, like, the filtered version is just let go of your pride. Just
Mhm.
if it becomes an issue between pride and you staying alive, stay alive, right?
Yeah,
The pride
absolutely.
the the pride can come back. The
Yeah.
pride will come back, right?
I
Um,
always like to think that, like, in the really hard moments that I know it's going to pass, so I don't wanna act on emotions, like, just emotions, like, right now, if if anybody is really, really upset, I would say and struggling with depression or suicidal ideations, I would say, do your best to find your trusted person that you could reach out to and have a conversation with them. Your trusted person was your sister in this situation. So you reached out to her and she responded exactly how your trusted person should respond, She's like, "I'm coming to get you." And I think that's crucial in this situation. I think it's crucial in anybody's struggle. Um, so find your trusted person, reach out to them. If you don't have a trusted person, as Chris mentioned, call a hotline, uh, and reach out and speak anonymously if you feel like there's shame. But I feel like it's more important that you stay here with us than it is to be worried about what other people will think. I know that's easier said than done because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't want people to think." Chris, you said it yourself earlier in the live. You said, I don't want people to think I'm crazy or, because I was institutionalized. But I I think that that might also be sort of like a judgment on our part because I didn't think that. I thought, "Wow, really brave of you to go and seek the help that you needed, and I'm really proud that you did that." And I can tell I'm making you uncomfortable with compliments again. Um,
yeah,
but
I gotta
yes.
work on that.
But yes, it's like finding your purpose, your reason for being here and finding your trusted person and reaching out when you need help. And I know that's really difficult for some men to do because as a society, we they're you got to be tough, you can't have emotions, but I think we that's actually crap and we need to just realize that we're all human and we all have emotions and big feelings and we just need to talk about it. And the one thing I will say is I'm really proud of this generation for making mental health more of a conversation that we can all have. Because, people before would just not talk about it and people would struggle. And there was so much shame around mental health or embarrassment. Now, as a society as a whole, we're opening up more and we're becoming more comfortable with it and having those tough conversations. And that's so important because it's going to save lives.
Yeah, and I think that's a generational thing, right? Where, like, I think I think I was born in the '80s. I was on the cusp of that generational shift, right? Because now I hear kids saying like, "Nah, I can't do that. I need a mental health day." And
Mhm.
it's like, what fucking 13-year-old says that? Like I wouldn't have said that at 13, but so
But it's
I've
incredible that it's so discussed now that kids can feel comfortable enough to come forward and say, "I need a mental health day." As adults, I think, you know, because our generations didn't really get to say that, I think that, adopting that younger generation's way of like, "I need a mental health day," I think that's so important.
yeah, and I think I think for us older folk, uh, I'm really itching to go unfiltered, but uh, it's like um, just pick up your skirt, grab your balls, cry me a river, and build me a bridge and get over it, kind of a thing. Like just admit to the like as like nothing is gonna happen other than someone on that listening and saying, "Oh, shit, like, you're really struggling? Like, how can I support you?"
Mhm.
That is unless that person's a complete jerk, right? Which statistically, the odds are not in your favor. Um, the person on the receiving end is gonna be like is gonna genuinely wanna help, right?
Yeah,
They may not understand, right? But at least you have an ear, right?
I like what you
Um,
said when you said, "How can how can I support you?" That I think that for people who may struggle with, "Well, I don't know what to say if someone comes to me with mental health struggles." I think just as something simple as, "How can I support you?" is the best way to respond because that person's coming to you looking for support. And in that moment, if you feel like you can't take this on, like, Chris, if you came to me and I was just struggling myself, uh, and and I asked, "How can I support you?" Or even if I was struggling and I couldn't support you, I'd be like, who can I find for you to support you? Because unfortunately, I can't take this on right now emotionally. But I want to help you however I can. So yeah, I think that that's like a brilliant way to put it is just ask, how can I support you? And if in that moment you yourself are struggling and you can't support somebody else's mental health because yours is struggling, I think that's when, you know, how can I, redirect you to somebody else or something else?
and and honestly, like, sometimes the along your piggybacking off of what you said, like, uh, sometimes just offering that presence of just like, "Hey, I'm here to listen to." Like, if all you need is someone to listen because, like, most people won't be able to fully understand what you're going through. Like, case in point, there are times where I still kind of dabble with the darkness, right? And, like, it's difficult to go to my sister and talk to her about this because it's emotionally draining for her, or to my mom, or to my dad. And oftentimes they don't know how to help, right? They don't know what to say. It it's like akin to when you're 10 and you walk up to your parents and you say, "What's it like to be a parent?" Right? How do you explain that to a 10-year-old? I
Mhm.
mean, I have a great answer to that, which would be, don't answer, wait till 2 o'clock in the morning and wake that kid up and tell them that your sock fell off. Haha, bad dad joke. Sorry. No, but, like, the kid's not gonna understand until they become a parent, right? Same with same with me saying, like, "Hey, like, I'm struggling with, like, these kinds of thoughts." The My sister can do her best to listen, but I've had to change my service provider, for lack of a better term. I'm part of this association for suicide prevention group here in Massachusetts.
Mhm.
And what better people to talk to about this stuff, right? Than to someone who's been there, who's been at that same edge, and I can be like, "Hey, like, I'm really struggling with this today, like, and I like this is how it's affecting my overall perspective." And it's and just that kind of like wisdom and sense of community that comes out of that can be helpful, or even just taking the mind off of things. I started playing pickleball of all things, and
Yeah. I
like,
mean, just finding the things that you love to do. Like I said, finding your purpose, find the things that you love to do, is so important. It Yeah, I think that, your story is inspiring and the will that you have to keep going. And not only that, but you're willing to come on and speak about your experience. And I think that's going to be so beneficial to so many men out there. And I know that you've written a book, um, and I don't know if you have a copy of it by you, but
oh, I do. Hang on. I'm gonna go off camera for a second. I do have a book. I should have been more prepared, but I'm not as unprepared as one may think. I got a copy of it right here. It's called Now That I'm Still Here, and yes, that shadow on the cover. Um, and funny thing, this is a picture I took of her at my sister's house. She's standing at her at the room I was staying in, and just her looking at me as I didn't know what to do with my life.
Yeah.
uh, and anyway, yeah. So it's called Now That I'm Still Here. Uh, there's a whole behind the scenes as to why the cover looks the way it does, why everything is off center. Because my life was off center, and I wanted people to like visually see that. And anyway, yeah, here's the book.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. We have like 4 minutes left of our live feed, but I wanted
Mm,
to see if anybody watching had any questions for Chris, and just anything that they wanted to add to the live. Anything at all. Ask away.
yeah, there's a chat
Um,
feature.
oh
At
yeah,
the
the
thing.
chat.
Yeah, you can
Oh,
use
see,
your chat.
it's on the other side of the screen for me.
Oh, it's
It's
on the other side.
it's
It
that
could
way.
be there. It could be there. It could be there. Uh, yeah, I'm not maybe, and I can't. The only crappy thing is you can't see when people are typing.
I know. It'll pop up though, but until then, for
Yeah,
the
if you have
next.
any questions, feel free to drop it in there, and I'll take a look at it and try to answer it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really thankful that you decided to get on here and speak to me about men's mental health, recently losing somebody to suicide, um,
I'm sorry
is
about that.
yeah, thanks. It's just a struggle, and I think that, like, if there had been more focus on, men's struggle and their mental health, I feel like, maybe we could combat this epidemic of male suicide, or in general, because like I said in the beginning, there's always been a stigma out there that men are meant to be emotionless and just, hardworking, and that's that. But in reality, we need to realize we're all human, we all have emotions, and we're just doing our best to manage them. But I think the more people who come out and speak about their feelings, and I think the better. And, yeah, it just it's just been a great conversation, and I didn't expect so many people to join.
Oh, me
Uh,
neither. There's 20.
yeah, which
Oh,
is
actually, some people may not know how to use the chat feature because it's kind of hidden. There's a button like right up here on your top right that looks like a weird little box. If you click on it, it'll pop the live chat uh, over. Um, but anyway,
well, we're
yeah.
our inboxes are always open. If somebody
Oh
doesn't wanna
yeah.
ask it in the group chat now, feel free to reach out. But as Chris, has mentioned, um if you are struggling with your mental health, reach out to the suicide hotline number. Chris, I believe you have it for the US. I'm UK based. So,
Yeah, it's 988 for the US and Canada.
mhm.
Um, I know I looked it up one time for the UK. I know the UK has something because I had a on my last live with Jason and Lynn, um, I had found it for someone who had reached out, and so I know one exists. All you got to do is like
Mhm.
Suicide Hotline UK, and it'll pop up.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. Well, it's been lovely chatting, and I'm thankful for everyone who joined us. This is my first like live ever, but Chris and I will be back to do more of our live chats, discussing just mental health or current affairs or events going on in the world. The world's a mess right now, so
Oh,
I
well,
just hope
sucks.
I just hope everyone is looking after themselves and their mental health, and our inboxes are open if you want to chat. But I hope everyone has a lovely weekend, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, just remember, if you're in a bad way, 3,024 years from now, things can either be really good or really bad because the year will be 50-50.
Well, I won't be here for 50-50, so
Yeah, me neither. Hey, that's a terrible dad joke. That one needs some workshopping. Anyway,
Okay. Well, I will chat with you later, Chris, and thank you everyone for joining.
all right, take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.